I saw a movie on Sunday, Charlie. I saw
What movie?
Venom: The Last Dance.
Oh, what'd you think of Venom: The Last Dance?
I think quite possibly that Venom: The Last Dance is the worst movie ever made. I think it's a contender. It is so freaking terrible, and I mean, it's completely divorced from any possible concepts of the Venom, the character, or anything that has ever happened in the Venom continuity, or anything to do with Spider-Man. Like, none of that stuff makes sense, first of all. But if you are just a normal person watching the movie, doesn't care about any of that stuff, you have, A, no idea what's happening because it's all so incredibly confusing. The plot is so wonky. Shit happens for no reason all the time. I had no idea where the movie was going. I couldn't like, understand. I didn't know when it was going to end. I didn't know if we were, like, this was the climax or that was the climax. They're like randomly making it funny and then super emotional, but like it's not emotional at all because you're not connected to any of these characters. Tom Hardy is like supposed to be hungover for like the entire movie, and it's like kind of funny in the beginning, but it's not. It's just kind of stupid near the end. They just throw in random events. It feels like the scriptwriter was just throwing shit at the wall like constantly, like. There was just nothing made any sense. It was so freaking stupid. And at the end of the movie, they do this thing that is so stupid that a couple movies do, which is terrible. They do like emotional flashbacks to like, earlier parts of the movie that I just saw. And some of the flashbacks were like 4 minutes ago. I'm like, I just saw that. I already know. You don't have to be like, I get he's sad because this person died. You don't have to show this. Like, I know he's sad. It's whatever. Like, why are you doing it? It's like they're just trying to pad the runtime with that stuff. I wanted to walk out. It was an absolutely horrendous movie.
All right, so this week, your pitch for this week is Venom 3, Let There Be The Last Dance.
Venom 3,
redone.
Let's not make any more of these fucking movies. Burn it to the ground.
Let's never do
Burn Sony
Venom
to the ground.
Again. Burn Sony to the ground and make Tom Hardy watch.
Yeah.
Make him cry.
Yeah, he was terrible. Every other actor was terrible in it. Nobody was good. Everyone was bad.
So you're confident that we could write a superior Venom 3 script?
I'm confident that you could write a superior Venom 3 script in the next 20 minutes. Whatever you wrote in 20 minutes would be better than what I watched in that. It was absolutely terrible. You don't have to know anything about Venom to make a better script than that. Like, that was just horrendous.
Well, you know what is
terrible.
You know what else is so freaking terrible? Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. I'm your host, Charles. Along with me, as always, my co-host, editor, producer, co-pilot, gunner, navigator, orator, and podcasting associate, Jacob Gloth. How you doing today, Jacob?
I am better now, Charlie, because I'm not watching the worst movie ever made, Venom: The Last Dance.
Venom 3: The Last Dance. Your favorite film.
Better. It's the worst movie ever made.
I watched
I'm
the
much
first
better
Venom.
now because I get to talk about something that's not a shitty movie that came out 2 weeks ago or something. I get to talk about a new pitch, Charlie. A title that you gave me. My Third Wife's Corpse, which is I thought a pretty good title. Where do you think I'm going to go with this? I love asking this question at the beginning because I want to see what your idea was.
See, my idea was like a sort of a Lothario kind of character, a guy who's like a reverse Black Widow. He marries rich women and then they die mysterious circumstances and he gets all the money, right? And then he is like haunted by one of the wives, and he has to make amends as this like the third wife's corpse is sort of like a Jiminy Cricket style, Ghost of Christmas Future sort of character who's like sort of predicting his oncoming demise and how he's gonna burn in hell, and he gains a conscience through that the haunting effectively.
Oh, okay.
Was my idea.
It's kind of like that. I'm not gonna get in. I'm gonna say the pitch, and then you'll find out what it is. It's somewhat like that.
Yeah.
But maybe a little bit more stupid. Not as emotionally interesting. So I'm gonna start with the year. So we're in the mid to late 1800s in the U.S. in the Old West. So it's a Western. We are following a gunslinger who just walks into a bar. His name's Cabo. He walks into a bar, and the bartender asks what he wants. Cabo says he doesn't really drink and can't drink now, and he looks at the door. The bartender says that's a shame because they just got this new scotch from, and before the bartender can finish what he's saying, Cabo turns around and tells him to pour. Cabo pounds several drinks and ends up lying flat on his face in the middle of a bar. In the middle of the bar, sort of doing like little snow angels in the beer and whatever other liquids are laying on the floor. And everyone's sort of just partying and having a good time around him, walking around like he's not there. And suddenly, as he's making these little snow angels in the beer, everything goes quiet, except for Cabo, who's still making these little snow angels and singing along to himself, very very drunk at this point. And but everyone else at the bar is completely silent. They've all frozen. We hear the pounding of boots, and a rough-looking man with a vicious scar across his face pulls Cabo to his feet. Cabo's sort of like hunched backwards, still pretty drunk.
Yeah.
This man's getting right up in his face, and he asks for his money. And Cabo explains that he just spent it all on scotch. And the man starts beating him up terribly before dragging him out into the street for a duel. And we can see that there's a couple other, thug-looking guys with this man as well. But they're all kind of like nicely dressed. They're clearly very wealthy thugs. So Cabo gets dragged outside. He's thrown into the dirt. And the man, walks like 20 or so, 30 paces, however far you walk away for a duel. And he keeps telling Cabo to get up. But Cabo, he's like trying to stand up, but he keeps flopping over onto the floor. He's like trying to like set his holster right, but he keeps falling over.
Yeah.
People are watching in awe and kind of like, fear because they know that this poor drunk is about to get absolutely destroyed. One of the people watching is a bounty hunter in very dark clothing. And he looks kind of like he's maybe going to intervene. He definitely looks interested, but he's not. He keeps his gun holstered and he just sort of watches.
Probably one hand on the gun in the holster, one hand he's got like a flask or something, and he's just like taking a swig, keeping an eye on him.
This guy is like an older guy, like in his 50s. Cabo is fairly is not young. He's probably like late 30s. And
he's not
also
like us, young
in the
bucks.
crowd, we have Cabo's friend, Dr. Montgomery, who's like sort of a snake oil salesman, very charismatic but slimy kind of dude. Monty, he goes by for short, and he briefly tries to help Cabo. He's got, he's trying to give like basically a sales pitch on why they shouldn't kill Cabo, and he's trying to vouch for him. But as soon as the other thugs sort of present any sort of threat, just sort of step up to him, he backs off immediately because, while Cabo and him are friends, he's more concerned about his own safety.
Yeah, he's like a snake oil salesman. That's how I'm imagining him in my head.
Yeah, he's
little vest,
guy.
bow tie, at a bowler hat.
Bowler hat.
Funny
he's got
mustache.
a big sort of like transatlantic accent kind of voice. So, everyone's watching the fight as it seems like it's about to happen. Cabo's very, very clearly going to get destroyed because he can't even stand up. But just as the other man draws his gun, just as it leaves his holster, he's shot in the chest to the surprise of the crowd. Cabo, while lying on the ground, shot the guy through his holster right into the dude's heart.
Nice.
The other thugs try to reach for their guns, but the bounty hunter, that's all in black, he puts his hand like over their chest and puts his hand on his gun, and they clearly somehow recognize this bounty hunter. He's a very tough looking dude, and like one of them is kind of like about to step up, and the other guy's like, "Oh, that's Vincenzo. Like, do you know who that is?" Like, and they're like, "Oh shit, okay." And so they all just give up and run away. So whoever this bounty hunter in all black is, he's clearly a very intimidating and somebody that's gonna scare away these thugs with just a look of his face. This, of course,
Twitch of
prompts
his mustache.
Cabo's victory prompts a joyous yell from Monty, who runs over to him and congratulates him on his new trick, shooting through the holster, and says they have to use it in their next act. Cabo isn't super thrilled about this or what that means, and he's starting to feel hungover. He's not even drunk really anymore, and he's asking if Monty can drive him home. So Monty shoves Cabo onto the back of his, like, snake oil salesman cart with all these, like, you know, tinctures and stuff that don't work.
Yeah. Shrunken heads and, like, pig fetuses in jars and all sorts of weird stuff in there.
Mm-hmm. And Monty brings Cabo back to... Cabo has this broken down ranch on the edge of town. And as he's bringing it back, he's asking why he still lives out here despite all of his wives being gone. And he starts running through all the women that have that he's been with. He points out that his first wife, second wife, and fourth wife all left him. The first one left him for the head of the railroad. The second wife for a bandit leader, and then became a bandit leader herself. And the fourth one left him for the governor. And the only one that, you know, that didn't abandon him was his third wife, who died of pneumonia like 2 months into their marriage. So he's like, that one doesn't even count. She probably would have left you too. So he's his friend, but he's ragging on him pretty hard here.
Yeah.
And
getting dunked on.
So Monty drops Cabo off, who crawls into his bed and starts crying. So he's having a rough time. And in the middle of the night, as the tears finally dry up and he's, you know, sleeping off all the liquor, he's jumped by a bunch of guys, put a bag over his head, and he's dragged out. So a bunch of thugs have him. And he's as they're dragging him around, he's yelling, he's like assuming like it's one of his 3 ex-wives, either the one that's married to the governor or the railroad, or please not the bandit leader, he keeps saying.
Oh god, she's so scary.
And he gets the sack pulled off his head in an abandoned church where he's face to face with the guy he shot earlier. It's a rotting corpse in front of him. And he's surrounded by a bunch of thugs and a man who looks just like the scarred dead guy. And he explains that his name is Indigo Morales, and he's this bigwig who works for Mr. Twombly, who's the head of the Z&O Railroad, and that Cabo shot his brother. So Cabo had taken out a loan from his brother and had been running away, like to avoid paying the loan, and he finally got tracked down to his home, and so Cabo obviously shot him, as we saw in the beginning. And Cabo, while distressed that he's been kidnapped by the guy he just killed his brother, is relieved, and he says, like, I'm just glad you're not one of my ex-wives, especially the one in the Black Maloney gang. She is the absolute worst. And as he says that, Morales smiles and laughs as Cabo hears the clinking of spurs, and Mara Maloney walks in with her massive gang, including her brother Jack Maloney. She joined this gang. When I say the Black Maloney gang, it used to be run by a guy whose last name was Black, and she married him and then added her name to the gang name. But now it's run. Her husband has since died. Which we'll explain in a second, but it's now Mara Maloney, Jack Maloney, and then Ricky Maloney, who's their idiot big brother, who's, you know, not the smartest guy, but he's this big muscular dude. Jack Maloney is
the muscle.
Is Mara's twin brother, and he's kind of just along for the ride. Doesn't really have any thoughts for her own. Mara's the mastermind of this gang. She's a maniac and psychotic, and kind of wants everyone else to die more than she even wants to live. And we find out as she walks in that the reason she hates Cabo is because he killed her. He killed her husband, her husband, after, you know, she left him, the old leader of the gang. And she's very excited to get her revenge and kill Cabo here. And so she makes an exchange with Morales and the railroad guys. So they give him a load of chemicals that Maloney had robbed from the railroad in exchange for Cabo and the privilege of shooting him. And so a railroad clerk and a scientist both come in and quickly rush away with the chemicals. And the railroad team performs like a full sweep and heads out and is very careful as they leave. And Mara Maloney, she brings Cabo out back to the graveyard. Brings him to the grave where his third wife is buried. and they dig up her grave and line him up over the hole, which she thinks is really funny. She's like, you get to die with your dead wife. You know, this is great. She's really loving the whole irony of it.
Yeah.
It's an incredibly stormy night, though, and they don't really notice, with all the rain and the lightning and thunder, that a lot of the other graves around are also dug up. And as they're preparing to shoot him, members of the gang are attacked by these corpses, Charlie. They're zombies. They're they dug up out of their graves, and they're attacking the other members of the gang. Mara clears a path and is about to shoot Cabo, when all of a sudden, Felicia, Cabo's dead third wife, seizes out of her casket and blocks the bullet. Mara is then pulled away by her brothers and yells and screams at Cabo as she runs away from the zombies. Cabo cuts loose his bonds and grabs a horse. He's about to leave, but then he's like, no, I can't leave. I've got to grab my dead zombie wife who's, just saved my life. And so he pulls her onto a horse.
He still cares.
And he's like so happy that she saved his life. He's not really even realizing that she's a zombie. And he's like kissing the back of her head. And he's like, oh my God, you're amazing. I love you. I'm so glad you're still alive. And she's like very clearly still trying to bite him, but he's not. He doesn't really seem like he's cognizant of it. And he's like barely avoiding all the bites. He brings her back to his ranch. He's trying to see if she remembers anything, but she's just a zombie, so she doesn't remember anything at all. So he ties her up, and he's like, I'm gonna find a cure. You're gonna be perfectly fine. I'm gonna save my third wife. So he ties her up, and he throws her on the back of his horse, and he heads into town to find his friend and the person who might have any idea of the cure, Dr. Montgomery. And he goes into town. Montgomery is he's in like the bathhouse, where it's maybe questionable what they actually do in the bathhouse.
Ooh.
And
maybe a little bit more than bathing.
Maybe a little bit more than bathing. And Dr. Montgomery maybe thinks he's gonna receive some different treatment, but the bath maid, or whatever their title is, walks in, and she's a zombie, so she's gonna bite the naked Dr. Montgomery, who's just in there for a bath.
Yeah.
But he's saved by Cabo, and brought out of town. They grab all of his stuff and leave. And Montgomery is not really sure where any of this zombie crap came from, but he is very certain that he'll make the cure, and he's going to make a ton of money from the cure. And Cabo agrees that he'll help him find the ingredients if he can, cure his wife. So that is the end of the pilot episode.
I like it. I think that's a fun start to a show.
I'll run through the characters now because they'll be obviously more important. So Cabo, obviously you've met him. He's the grizzled gunslinger in his late 30s. Yeah. Terrible drunk, as you noticed, but he's got this dark and uncontainable sense of humor that he even in like moments where it's really not good, he'll make a joke that he shouldn't, and he'll get beat up for it or attacked or cause an issue because of it.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of flaws, but he's quick with the draw. So that's his benefit, is that he's good with a gun, but he's kind of a shit without that.
That's all you need to be. That's all you need in the Wild Wild West.
His
that and a zombie wife.
That's true. You just need your third wife's corpse. He used to be in the Union Army, but he blew his pension on drink after the war ended, and became a bounty hunter. He settled down 4 times, if you've heard. His first, second, and third, and fourth wives. None of them worked out well. The man that's all in black, we're going to meet him again soon. His name is Vincenzo, or Vinny.
Vincenzo?
He's a wise old bounty hunter who wears all black and carries a butt stock for his revolver, so like an extended stock for it, so he can have more range.
Those are always cool.
He's got this thin curled mustache. He's got a
great scene of him just like
so he's like a funny guy.
Shot guys riding horses away, right? And lining up a shot.
Sits
and
back
the guy's
in his chair calmly and makes them. He's not like Cabo with saying things outlandish and that are gonna get you in trouble.
Yeah. That makes sense. He's a bit more even keeled.
Yeah, but he's the reasonable person in this situation. Very deadly, but very careful and cautious. He won't take any unnecessary risks. He's not very bold. I guess I could say but he is brave. He'll do something dangerous if he needs to, but he won't if he doesn't. He knows Cabo by his reputation, but they haven't had a run-in before. maybe episode 3. Dr. Montgomery Stevens, you've met him, the snake oil salesman, slimy. He's got this nice charismatic and personality, and he's always out for a buck. Really only nice to Cabo, because Cabo's kind of his... We'll get it as we go through the show, but Cabo's kind of like the guy that, helps him prove that his snake oil really works. He's like, this, I can...
Yeah.
This makes you a better shooter, or this makes you strong, or you take this one thing.
This cures hangovers.
Yeah, you won't have a hangover anymore. Another character we're going to meet shortly is Eliza Stock. She's a farmer's daughter. She's a 12-year-old kid, very bright and rowdy. Used to shooting with her dad and very good with horses. We have Felicia, who's the dead third wife, the dead zombified third wife.
Yeah.
I wrote in my notes here, she was very pretty, still kind of is.
Any sort of character?
Supposedly was very sweet, and Cabo loved her more than any of his other wives. But that's also because the other wives left him, and they weren't really together for very long. We'll get it as we go, but it's like they're sort of like a whirlwind romance where they met, got married almost immediately, and then she died. So wasn't really any time for anything bad to happen in their relationship.
And it's revealed she was killed by Monty because he was taking his best friend away.
She died of pneumonia as well.
No, probably.
Just like a really basic illness. Well, this is the 1860s or something, Charlie. This is, you could die from a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he could give you pneumonia. Monty seems like he's bright enough to give you pneumonia.
Yeah.
I could give you pneumonia right now.
Yeah, maybe she gets sick from something that we won't. Cabo will never figure it out. No one will ever figure it out, but the audience will realize whatever. She was a little sick, and whatever Monty gave her made her way more sick.
Monty gave her. Yeah. And he kept bleeding her.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Oh, we need to try trepanation next. Fucking drilling holes in her head. Nothing seems to be working. She should be better by now.
The main antagonists in this series are going to be the Black Maloney gangs. That's his old ex-wife, Mara Maloney, and her 2 brothers. The governor, who's just going to be called the governor, who may or may not be hoarding all the resources, including the possible cure to the zombies. And Mr. Twombly, who's the cruel railroad CEO that maybe started the zombie apocalypse in an attempt to build up his workforce.
Ooh. That's a fun little twist.
Well, that
started the zombie apocalypse. Fucking.
Well, you'll notice in that first episode, the chemicals and the fact that they're really careful as they leave the church, and they've been there for a while. It's going to be obvious, and they were definitely doing some experiments in this church, and something didn't go quite right. Now they're trying to get these chemicals to fix the situation. And maybe they needed those chemicals earlier, and the Black Maloney gang kind of caused a bit of an issue by stealing them. So it's very important that they get them back. All right. So episode 2, we open with a young farm girl who's our Eliza Stock, the young girl that I mentioned a few minutes ago. She's
shooting with her dad.
She's picking up supplies at the general store with her dad. She's watching, as she gets out of the store, she watches Cabo get thrown out of the bar, and her dad hides her eyes before Cabo is shot in the duel. But her dad is so surprised when Cabo somehow shoots the guy and not die himself. Her dad is his hands sort of fall from her eyes, and she gets to see that somehow Cabo has won this gunfight. And she looks at him on the ground. She could see that the smoke's coming from his holster, and she realized that he shot her, shot this dude through his holster while he was on the ground. She's pretty amazed by that. And she and her dad go home, and she wants to get in some shooting practice. And so she skips dinner and goes out to a field to practice, Cabo's holster move. And she's lying on the ground trying to shoot bottles like how he shot him. And as she's doing that, she hears screaming. And she starts wandering back to the house, and it's dark, and the horses are sort of running loose. And she finally wanders in the house, and she sees her brother, who's kind of walking a little weirdly. And she's asking him, what are you doing? Why are you trying to scare me? What are you... like, stop, please. And she sees that he looks all sick.
Yeah.
He's got these, like, weird marks all over him. And that's when her dad grabs her and, like, shoves her brother back. And she's running. Her dad's, like, fending him off, her brother off, and, like, you know, trying to reason with him. And as he's doing that, a lantern falls. The house begins to burn. And we had this, you know, epic scene as her dad, like, you know, gets her out, but gets trapped by the fire, and, like, a beam falls or whatever. And he ends up burning in the house with her brother. And so she's crying alone outside for a long time until eventually Dr. Monty with Cabo and Felicia, who's still tied on the back of Cabo's horse, kind of growling and stuff.
Yeah. Is she walking behind? Because I think that would be a pretty funny image, is if you have, like, this, like, train car, effectively, and you have Monty and his horses and his cart in front, and then behind them you have Cabo on his horse, and then behind them you have the zombie wife, like, tied by the hands, being dragged by Cabo's horse, and she's just, like,
I like that. I think that it'd be funny if, like, her kind of position changes a lot. Like, sometimes maybe she might be, like, tied up to the front of the carriage. Maybe, like, they tied the reins to her hand so that she's sort of leading the pack almost.
She's riding the things, yeah, or she's, like, tied in shotgun next to the carriage because, you know, Monty said something that's annoying. And so Cabo was like, you know what, you have to sit next to the zombie. And so they put, like, a bag over her head to stop her from biting. But it's just, like, she's just, like, gnawing at Monty. And Monty's like, ooh.
The thing is that Cabo is, like, even though the fact that he knows she's a zombie, he's, like, still in love with her. And he's still treating her like she is his alive wife. Like, he's just calling her honey all the time and being like, do you need some water, sweetie? Like, he's like an attentive husband for, like, a zombie wife. And so he's like, you know, he's making sure she's got, like, nice clothes on, and, you know, she's not, like, going into the mud. Like, he'll like hold her hand when she comes off the horse, making sure she gets down okay. That whole thing.
Yeah.
So
very chivalrous.
They run.
Probably the nicest he ever treated any of his wives is when she was dead.
And so Dr. Monty's going to go up to this crying girl who's sad in front of her burned home with her dead dad and brother inside, and he just continually starts asking her if she's got any elder sage. And he's getting annoyed because she's, like, just still crying. And Monty will go back to the carriage. I'm like, all right, she's useless. Let's move on. Cabo's like, well, we can't, like, Cabo will say, like, okay, and then but his zombie wife will make, like, a noise. And he's like, oh, she's saying we should get her. He's like, that's not. She didn't say anything. What do you like? Monty's like, what are you talking about? Like, she's none of that made any sense. Like, I know my wife. She's saying we should bring this girl with us. We can't just leave her here. And so they end up taking Eliza with them on the journey. And so that's how she sort of joins the group there. Episode 3, we're gonna
adventuring party.
This is where we're gonna get Vincenzo here. They're gonna go to a larger town and find that it's like a zombified mess, but it's gonna be the classic. They're gonna walk into the town thinking it's okay before they realize how messed up it is. And Vincenzo's gonna, like, lead them through the town, like, helping them get out, and end up joining their group.
Oh, that's a fun action sequence. Like, Vincenzo's, like, on the, you know, they ride into town and you don't see anyone's faces, but you see, like, people walking around and you see their backs and the backs of their heads. And he's like, oh, finally some, you know, peace and quiet, some fucking, like, civilization. Monty's like, oh, I'll apply my wares, like, all this stuff. And then as they hop down, you know, off the cart, that's when the zombies, like, turn around and they're like, surrounded immediately.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, like, fucking a stick of dynamite is thrown at the zombies and a ton explode, and you see Vincenzo and he's, like, armed to the teeth on the roof of one of the buildings. He's like, follow me, I'll show you to the place, kabam! And he's, like, headshotting all these zombies, and Cabo's doing the same thing, you know, but he's down on the ground, and Vincenzo's, like, leading the fight, but he's doing it from a safe vantage point, and they're all, like, actually fighting. And so they're just kind of like, this guy's telling us to do what to do a lot. It's kind of getting on my nerves.
Yeah, maybe he's, like, leading them where to go from the rooftops, and they'll meet up with him somewhere. And that's when they'll, you know, have to devise their plan to escape this town, because it's absolutely just chock full of zombies. Now, where the series is going from here, we're gonna have, like, sort of a mini boss with several mini bosses. So they're constantly going to be harassed by the Black Malone gang. The Black Malone gang is going to become basically like Team Rocket in Pokemon. Like, they're the sort of like comical villain that shows up all the time, that like sort of like barely almost gets them, or doesn't really quite isn't like super menacing, but is a constant thorn that is messing with them
in their side. Yeah.
At first, they're going to be trying to get to the railroad because I think the railroad is going to have the cure for this disease, and they'll find Mr. Twombly in the railroad, and it is just going to be a mess. And it's like the railroad did create the apocalypse, but they couldn't. It was the worst place to be for the apocalypse because they had all these dead bodies that they were trying to reanimate so that they could make railroads quicker, and so they were just completely overwhelmed by all the zombies immediately.
Yeah.
And all the stuff they had for a possible cure was stolen by the governor. So their new goal is going to be to track down the governor and find the cure. That'll be like the season 2.
Is that a reference? Is that a reference, Jake, to another popular piece of zombie media in which the governor is one of the major villains?
I don't know. Is it?
The Walking Dead?
Oh, I never watched The Walking Dead. So
Come on. Well, I noticed, and we'll say it's a reference because it makes us seem more cultured and
definitely
intelligent. No,
it's definitely
not true. We're not either of those things.
Not cultured. But that is my show, Charlie.
I think.
Is there anyone?
I like it a lot.
Oh, that's good. Is there anyone that you thought any character you want to play in this? Do you want to be?
I want to.
The brother.
You know who I want to
shot.
Play.
Yeah,
I want to play Monty.
Yeah, of course, yeah. That's
I want to be Monty.
Monty's probably the most fun character throughout this. He's going to be constantly trying to sell people like fake cures to the zombie illness. He's going to be,
and he could be trying to sell zombies shit because he's not really fully aware. And maybe he's like, "Oh, if I get like some makeup," and we could have a fun scene where Monty's like in zombie makeup and he's like growling. But he's growling in his transatlantic salesman accent. And the zombies are all just staring at him and nodding. And then, he wipes his face and you can see his like normal human face. And he's like, ah, shit. And all the zombies start coming after him. He's like, Cabo, help. Pure cowardice. I love it.
Oh, I forgot to mention Ricky Malone, who's the tough muscle of the Malone gang, the absolute idiot, but he's really tough. He's so dumb, in fact, that it's not going to be really mentioned by anyone, but it's something the audience will notice, is that the zombies will never attack him. Because they're after brains, obviously. And he's so dumb.
He ain't got no brains.
He's so dumb that the zombies will never bite him. They'll never try to attack him in any way. They're only after Jack and Mara Malone. So he's kind of just okay.
He's fine. He's thriving in the zombie apocalypse. He just doesn't know it because he's too stupid to realize it as well.
Maybe we'll have like one brief moment where he gets like left behind in like a horde of zombies, and Mara and Jack are gonna think that he's dead, but like a couple days later he's gonna show up and be like, yeah, I don't know, I'm fine. They're like, how did you survive? Like, do you have any bites or scratch? Like, they're searching all over him trying to find a bite or a scratch, and he's like, I don't know what I just like walked through them. I don't know.
I walked away. It's fine.
I just got out. No issues.
Are we gonna get any? Because I love in any zombie media whenever they zombify something besides a person. So are we getting any zombie horses,
I'd love a zombie horse.
Because I think that might be...
Zombie horses are great.
That might be fun. If, like, throughout the whole adventure with the Black Malone gang is, like, their horses keep, like, getting injured or dying, and then by the end they're all riding zombie horses, and they've got, like, brains attached on, like, strings, and that's what's getting the horses to run,
And maybe it's all comes down to... Monty, who like, he's like, oh, the zombie horses, that's cheaper. We don't have to get any hay. We don't have to feed them or water them, we just use zombie
that's
horses.
Great.
All we got to do is, make sure they don't bite us.
Yeah, exactly. And then, I mean, I'm sure you have a better death planned, but for the twin brother, Malone, you get like, he's got this big speech, and he's got guns trained on Vincenzo and Kimbo, and he's got like, there's no way out, and then a zombie horse just comes up behind him and takes a big chomp out of his neck like it's a juicy apple, you know?
Yeah.
Just, because I would love to see a guy get eaten by a zombie horse. That sounds fun as hell.
That would be.
In a dark,
That would be good. Just
fucked up way, but
massively
still fun.
take
Yeah,
a big
just a huge chomp out of him.
Mm-hmm.
Or like a zombie horse like kicks somebody, but because their legs are rotted meat, the leg just explodes, you know?
Yeah.
He kicks Kimbo into a wall, but snaps the leg in half, and then the horse just falls over on its side. Yeah, but I like the show a lot.
Yeah.
My third wife's corpse. Are we going to reveal, is the third wife's corpse ever going to gain any sort of sentience? Is she ever going to,
Get
like...
cured? I honestly wasn't sure how it should end with that. I kind of want her to get cured.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't think that would be funny. So... Here's
my idea, right, for the cure. Because I agree, it should be funny, because Kimbo doesn't deserve, a happily ever after. I think it would be funny if, like, they finally, Monty and, they meet a scientist along the way, and they manage to put together the cure, and they try it out on her, and she's like, after a few days she wakes up, and she's like, oh my god, where am I? Oh god, Kimbo! Oh fuck, you're the worst! Yeah. And, she runs away from him because she hates his guts so much, and then she falls off of a cliff, tumbles down, cracks her head open, and dies, and then comes back as a zombie again. And he's just like, I think I liked her better this way.
That would be pretty good.
Right back where we started. Yeah. But I like the show a lot. I think it's fun. I think it's funny, and there's plenty of room for fun action sequences and set pieces. Mm-hmm. Lots of cool ideas. Zombie snakes. That would be fun. Get a zombie snake. Throw it at a guy. He dies from venom and then turns into a zombie. He dies from watching Venom 3: The Last Dance. This is the worst film ever made.
It is the worst film ever made.
All right. Do you want to give me my title, or do you want to do the outro and then do the title?
I might as well just do the title now. So you have to pick from... I've got a list here. 1, 2, 3, 4.
4.
The fourth one is
fourth one.
Ticket to Ride. Last Ticket to Ride.
Last Ticket to Ride. I got a ticket to ride.
You're narrowing it down here, Charlie.
I'll write this down.
There's...
I'm excited.
The really dangerous one is still in here. The one you should be afraid of.
I know.
The title is still sitting right here.
I am excited for the challenge that it will present.
This one, though, I think you'll...
Last Ticket to Ride.
That isn't too hard, I don't think. I felt like a very Charlie title when I came up with it. I was like, ooh. I could imagine like a show that you would... This is a very Charlie
This
title.
probably be a road trip show set in space or something.
What will it be? Who knows?
Save the universe from something, from digital technology. It has to be analog. 1970s inspired.
Yeah.
Taxi driver. Yeah.
I can tell you what it won't be. It won't be My Third Wife's Corpse.
It won't be.
That was today's pitch.
That was today's pitch. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. I've been your host, Charles. Along with me, as always, has been my co-host, editor, producer, co-pilot, gunner, navigator, orator, and podcasting associate, Jacob Gloth. If you like what you heard here and you want to hear more, please give us a like, a follow, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog, tell your cat. And remember, we will be here next week with a brand new televisual series for you to imagine and enjoy. Thank you very much, and have a good night.